On a chilly autumn evening in Cincinnati, when most people were heading home from work, a simple moment of human connection was about to remind everyone that kindness still exists in the most unexpected places. As JD and Usha Vance walked down the quiet street after a community meeting, they had no idea their lives were about to intersect with someone who would change their perspective forever. Comment where you're watching from today, as we share a story that proves how a small act of compassion can ripple through countless lives. The streetlights were just beginning to flicker on as Lauren Stevens huddled with her two young children outside the local grocery store. Her weather-worn coat, carefully mended at the seams, told a story of dignity in the face of hardship. Just 3 months ago, she had been a medical receptionist with a stable life. Now, after a devastating layoff and mounting medical bills from her youngest child's asthma, she found herself doing something she never imagined: asking strangers for help to feed her family. The evening crowd hurried past, their eyes carefully avoiding contact, their steps quickening as they approached. Lauren understood. She used to be one of them, rushing home to make dinner, never imagining she'd end up on the other side of fortune. Her daughter Crystal, just 6 years old, pressed closer against her side, while 4-year-old Daniel clutched his tattered stuffed rabbit, a reminder of better days. JD and Usha Vance were deep in conversation about their own childhood experiences with food insecurity when they first noticed the small family. The couple had just finished speaking at a local community center about economic mobility, but here was the reality of their message, standing right before them. Usha, whose own immigrant parents had known similar struggles, was the first to slow her steps. The moment could have passed like any other: a brief glance, a twinge of sympathy, and then the comfortable distance that people maintain between themselves and others' hardships. But something about Lauren's quiet dignity, the way she held her children close while trying to maintain their sense of security, struck a chord with both JD and Usha. As they approached, Daniel looked up at them with eyes that seemed too old for his young face. Lauren started her practiced apology, the one she had learned to give when people told her to move along. "I'm sorry, we'll be going." But Usha's gentle smile stopped her mid-sentence. "How long have you been out here?" Usha asked, her voice carrying the warmth of genuine concern. Lauren hesitated, years of pride warring with desperate necessity. "Just today," she answered softly, though the fatigue in her eyes told a longer story. JD knelt down to eye level with Crystal, noticing how she protectively held her brother's hand. What happened next would be captured by Nicole Henderson, a local journalist who happened to be passing by. She would later describe it as the kind of moment that restores your faith in humanity. Instead of simply offering money or food, JD and Usha did something unexpected. They asked Lauren to join them for dinner. At first, Lauren was hesitant, her protective instincts kicking in. But there was something about Usha's gentle insistence and JD's understanding eyes that made her trust them. They walked together to Angela Powell's diner just around the corner, a modest establishment known for its home-style cooking and warm atmosphere. As they settled into a booth, Lauren's story emerged bit by bit. She had been working at Christina Diaz's medical practice until budget cuts forced layoffs. Her savings had stretched as far as they could, but between rent and her son's medical needs, she had finally reached the breaking point. "The hardest part," she confided, watching her children eagerly eat the hot meals placed before them, "is feeling invisible. People look right through you when you're struggling." JD shared his own memories of watching his mother struggle to make ends meet, while Usha spoke about her parents' early days in America. What began as a simple dinner transformed into something more profound, a recognition of shared humanity, of the thin line between stability and crisis that so many walk every day. But the Vances weren't content with just providing one meal. As Lauren finished her story, Usha excused herself to make a phone call. Unknown to Lauren, she was contacting Jennifer Hoffman, a social worker she knew through her community work. Meanwhile, JD was quietly arranging something with Michael Crawford, a local business owner who had recently been speaking about the need for experienced medical office staff. When Jennifer arrived at the diner 45 minutes later, she brought with her more than just professional assistance. She had already contacted Robert Manning's emergency housing program and secured temporary accommodation for Lauren and her children. Michael Crawford had agreed to interview Lauren the next morning for an opening at his medical facility. Lauren's hands trembled as she realized what was happening. "I don't know how to thank you," she began, but JD gently interrupted. "Thank us by remembering this moment when you're back on your feet," he said. "Sometimes life knocks us down, but it's the hand up that matters most." The evening ended with practical arrangements being made, but its impact was just beginning. Nicole Henderson's article about the encounter would go viral, inspiring others to look differently at those struggling in their own communities. Angela Powell, the diner owner, would institute a Pay It Forward meal program that would help countless others in similar situations. 6 months later, Lauren Stevens would stand before a community meeting, sharing her story not as a cautionary tale, but as testimony to the power of human connection. She had not only secured stable employment at Crawford's medical facility but had also started a support group for other single parents facing similar challenges. Crystal Anderson, a social psychologist who studied the ripple effects of this encounter, would later write, "What made this story resonate wasn't just the act of kindness itself, but how it demonstrated the power of seeing people in their full humanity." The Vances didn't just offer temporary help, they recognized Lauren's dignity and potential. The truth is, every day we pass by people whose stories we don't know, whose struggles we don't see. Sometimes it takes someone like JD and Usha Vance to remind us that behind every request for help is a human being worthy of being seen, heard, and supported. Have you ever experienced a moment of kindness that changed your life? Or been in a position to help someone who just needed a chance? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the smallest acts of compassion can create the biggest changes in someone's world. The morning after the encounter at Angela Powell's diner dawned with a sense of possibility that had been absent from Lauren Stevens' life for months. As she prepared her children for their first day at the temporary housing arranged by Robert Manning's program, she couldn't help but marvel at how quickly life could change. But what she didn't know was that her story was already inspiring a wave of change throughout the community. Michelle Hammond, a veteran reporter at the local newspaper, had picked up Nicole Henderson's initial coverage and decided to dig deeper. "There's something here that goes beyond a simple act of kindness," she explained to her editor, Bradley Quinn. "This is about how we as a society choose to see or ignore the struggles right in front of us." The story began to spread through social media, catching the attention of Stephanie Ruiz, a local business owner who had been considering downsizing her staff due to economic pressures. After reading about Lauren's situation, she instead decided to create a training program for employees facing hardship, partnering with Jessica Hoffman's Workforce Development Initiative to provide stability during difficult times. Meanwhile, at Crawford Medical Center, Lauren's interview with Michael Crawford turned into something unexpected. Rather than simply offering her a position, Crawford found himself deeply affected by her insights into the challenges faced by working parents in the medical field. "We've been approaching this all wrong," he admitted to his HR director, Melissa Nelson. "We need to reshape our policies around the real lives of our employees." The ripple effects continued to spread. Douglas Richardson, a prominent real estate developer, reached out to JD and Usha Vance with an innovative proposal. He wanted to convert one of his struggling properties into affordable housing specifically designed for single parents transitioning back into the workforce. "Reading about Lauren's story made me realize we have the power to prevent these situations," he explained. At Angela Powell's diner, the Pay It Forward program was taking on a life of its own. Christine Walker, a regular customer, had been inspired to create a network of local businesses willing to participate in similar initiatives. "It's not just about providing meals," she explained. "It's about creating spaces where people can maintain their dignity while getting back on their feet." The impact reached the education sector when Benjamin Murray, principal of the local elementary school, implemented new protocols for identifying and supporting students from families facing sudden economic hardship. Often, children like Crystal and Daniel bear the invisible burden of their family struggles, he observed. "We need to create safety nets that catch them before crisis points." Lauren's support group for single parents, which started with just 3 members meeting in the back room of the diner, quickly grew to become a powerful network. Patricia Vincent, a career counselor, volunteered her services, helping members update resumes and prepare for interviews. "What Lauren showed us," she said, "is that sometimes the difference between crisis and stability is just having the right connections and support at the right time." The transformation at Crawford Medical Center continued as well. Inspired by Lauren's perspective, Michael Crawford worked with Jennifer Hoffman to establish an employee assistance program that went beyond traditional benefits. They created emergency funds, childcare assistance, and flexible scheduling options that acknowledged the complex realities of their workers' lives. The story caught the attention of Philip Chin, a tech entrepreneur who had been developing an app for community resource sharing. He reached out to Lauren and the Vances, seeking their input on how technology could better connect people in need with available assistance. "The problem isn't always a lack of resources," he noted, "but rather the barriers between those resources and the people who need them most." JD and Usha Vance found themselves fielding calls from other communities wanting to replicate the organic support network that had developed. Jordan Nelson, a community organizer from a neighboring city, worked with them to create a template for what they called compassion networks, interconnected systems of businesses, social services, and community members ready to provide immediate assistance to families in crisis. The impact on Lauren's children was particularly profound. Crystal, who had been withdrawn and anxious, began to flourish in her new school environment. Her teacher, Michelle Day, noticed how the stability had transformed not just Crystal's academic performance but her whole demeanor. "She's writing stories now," Michelle shared, "about helping others and making the world better." Daniel's health improved significantly once they had stable housing and regular medical care. Dr. Rachel Nichols, his new pediatrician at Crawford Medical Center, worked with the family to create a comprehensive asthma management plan that had been impossible during their period of instability. "Sometimes medical care is about more than just prescriptions," she observed. "It's about creating the conditions where healing is possible." The story's reach extended to the corporate world when Natalie Murphy, CEO of a regional banking chain, implemented new policies for working with customers facing sudden financial hardship. "Reading about Lauren made us question our automatic responses to late payments and overdrafts," she explained. "We needed to start seeing the humans behind the account numbers." Local faith communities became involved through the efforts of Reverend Daniel Carson, who organized a network of congregations committed to providing emergency assistance. "What the Vances showed us," he said, "is that meaningful help requires more than just charity. It requires genuine connection and sustained support." The media coverage attracted the attention of Gregory Young, a documentary filmmaker who saw in this story a way to challenge public perceptions about poverty and assistance. "What makes this story powerful," he noted, "is how it demonstrates that anyone can find themselves in crisis and how community response can transform not just individual lives but entire systems." Lauren's original support group evolved into a formal organization, with Crystal Anderson providing professional guidance on structure and sustainability. They named it Visible Hearts, reflecting their mission to ensure that no one in their community would feel invisible during times of struggle. The impact on local policy was significant. City Council member Stephanie Morgan worked with JD and Usha Vance to draft new guidelines for community response to economic crises. "We needed to move beyond traditional assistance models," she explained, "and create systems that preserve dignity while providing practical help." As summer approached, Angela Powell's Diner had become more than just a restaurant. It was a community hub where people from all walks of life came together to share meals and stories. The Pay It Forward program had expanded to include job networking and skill-sharing opportunities, coordinated by volunteer Jason Walters. Lauren's journey from crisis to stability became a case study in effective community response. Dr. Heather Craig, a sociology professor at the local university, used it to illustrate how informal support networks could work alongside traditional social services to create more effective safety nets. "What makes this model unique," she wrote, "is how it maintains human dignity at its center." The transformation of Crawford Medical Center under Michael Crawford's leadership attracted attention from other healthcare providers. Brandon Palmer, a healthcare consultant, worked with them to document their policy changes and create a template for other organizations. They've shown that compassionate policies can coexist with business success, he observed. The story's impact continued to grow as other communities began implementing similar initiatives. Taylor Knight, a business leader from a neighboring state, visited to study the network of support that had developed. What's remarkable, he noted, is how organic and sustainable this movement has become. It's not dependent on any one person or organization, it's truly a community effort. Have you witnessed how a single act of kindness can transform an entire community? Share your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the greatest changes start with just one person choosing to see another's humanity. 3 months after the fateful evening outside the grocery store, the impact of JD and Usha Vance's simple act of kindness had evolved into something none of them could have predicted. Lauren Stevens' story had become a catalyst for change, inspiring a movement that was reshaping how communities across the country approached the challenge of supporting families in crisis. The transformation began to attract national attention when Emily Lawson, a prominent social policy researcher, published a comprehensive study of what she called the Cincinnati model. Her research revealed how the organic network of support that had developed around Lauren's case was more effective than traditional assistance programs. What makes this different, she wrote, is how it preserves dignity while providing practical help. At Crawford Medical Center, the changes Michael Crawford had implemented were showing remarkable results. Melissa Nelson, now promoted to Chief of Human Resources, reported a 40% decrease in employee turnover and a significant improvement in job satisfaction scores. When people know they have real support during difficult times, she explained, it transforms how they relate to their work and their colleagues. The ripple effects reached Washington when Stephanie Ruiz was invited to testify before a congressional committee on workforce development. She brought with her not just statistics and projections, but real stories from the growing network of businesses participating in what they now called the Visible Hearts Initiative. Her testimony caught the attention of Alexandra Howard, a senior policy advisor who saw potential for national implementation. Meanwhile, Lauren's support group had grown into a full-fledged organization with chapters opening in neighboring states. Kristen Walsh, an organizational development consultant, worked with them to create a sustainable structure while maintaining the personal connection that made their approach so effective. The key, she emphasized, is never losing sight of the individual stories behind the statistics. The impact on children became a particular focus when Benjamin Murray collaborated with child psychologist Dr. Rachel Hall to document how stable support systems affected academic performance. Crystal and Daniel Stevens' progress became part of a larger study showing how addressing family stability could transform educational outcomes. These children aren't just surviving anymore, Dr. Hall noted, they're thriving. Angela Powell's diner had evolved into something of a community center, with regular workshops and networking events coordinated by Jennifer Hoffman. The Pay It Forward program had expanded to include skill-sharing sessions where community members taught everything from resume writing to basic home repairs. It's about more than just meals now, Angela explained. It's about building connections that last. The tech sector became involved when Philip Chen's resource-sharing app launched in beta form. Named Community Bridge, the platform connected people in need with immediate assistance while also building longer-term support networks. Lauren Stevens served as a consultant on the project, ensuring it addressed real-world needs rather than just theoretical solutions. The healthcare industry took notice when Crawford Medical Center's employee support program began showing measurable improvements in patient care metrics. Dr. Caitlin Brennan, a healthcare policy analyst, conducted a study showing how staff stability and well-being directly correlated with better patient outcomes. When we support our healthcare workers, she concluded, we're ultimately supporting better care for everyone. The movement gained unexpected momentum when Douglas Richardson partnered with real estate developer Victoria Horton to expand their affordable housing initiative. They created a model for transitional housing that included on-site childcare and career development resources. We're not just providing shelter, Victoria explained, we're creating launching pads for families to rebuild their lives. JD and Usha Vance found themselves increasingly called upon to speak about the power of community-based support systems. At a national conference on economic mobility, They shared the stage with Lauren Stevens, whose articulate description of her journey brought the audience to their feet. "The solution isn't just about programs," she told them. "It's about seeing each other's humanity." The impact reached the education sector when Michelle Day worked with the school district to implement new protocols for identifying and supporting students from families in transition. The early warning system they developed helped catch families before they reached crisis points, connecting them with resources before situations became desperate. The story took an unexpected turn when Michael Crawford announced a major expansion of his medical center's community health initiative. Working with Dr. Jonathan Rose, they created a model for integrated family support that combined healthcare access with practical assistance. "Medical care is just one piece of the puzzle," Dr. Rose explained. "True healing requires addressing the whole picture." The movement's influence extended to the banking sector when Natalie Murphy's innovative financial assistance programs began showing promising results. Other banks took notice, and soon a consortium of financial institutions, led by Jason Sampson, was working to create more flexible policies for families facing temporary hardship. The media coverage expanded when Gregory Young's documentary, Invisible No More, premiered at a major film festival. The film followed several families who had been helped by the growing network of support, including the Stevens family. Crystal's articulate descriptions of how her life had changed touched viewers deeply. "Nobody should feel ashamed about needing help," the now confident 7-year-old told the camera. Lauren's original support group celebrated its first anniversary with a community gathering that demonstrated the breadth of their impact. Among the attendees was Patricia Vincent, who had helped dozens of parents return to stable employment. "What we're seeing," she observed, "is how support begets support. People who receive help become the ones offering help to others." The academic world took notice when Dr. Heather Craig published a comprehensive analysis of the Cincinnati model in a leading sociology journal. Her research showed how informal support networks, when properly structured and supported, could create more sustainable solutions than traditional assistance programs. "We're seeing a paradigm shift in how we approach community support," she wrote. The business community's involvement deepened when Brandon Palmer organized a coalition of companies committed to implementing employee support programs modeled after Crawford Medical Center's initiative. "What we've learned," he explained at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, "is that supporting employees through crisis isn't just ethical, it's good business." The story's impact reached the nonprofit sector when Crystal Anderson helped develop training programs for organizations wanting to implement similar support networks in their communities. "The key," she emphasized, "is maintaining the human connection while building sustainable systems." As the movement continued to grow, JD and Usha Vance remained focused on the essential humanity at its core. "What happened that evening wasn't about charity," Usha explained during a community forum. "It was about recognizing our shared humanity and acting on that recognition." Have you ever been part of a movement that started with a single act of kindness? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the smallest gestures can create the biggest changes when we choose to see and support each other. 1 year to the day after JD and Usha Vance first encountered Lauren Stevens and her children outside that grocery store, a celebration of transformation was taking place at Angela Powell's Diner. The small restaurant, now a symbol of community renewal, was filled with faces that told stories of lives changed by a single moment of compassion. Lauren Stevens stood at the podium, her children beside her, looking nothing like the desperate mother who had once stood outside a grocery store. Now the director of patient services at Crawford Medical Center, she addressed the gathered crowd with quiet confidence. "A year ago, I thought I was invisible," she began. "Today, I want to tell you about all the others who felt the same way, until someone chose to see them." The room was filled with people whose lives had been touched by the movement that began that autumn evening. Michael Crawford sat with his management team, including Melissa Nelson, who had revolutionized their employee support systems. Next to them was Douglas Richardson, whose affordable housing initiative had now helped over 50 families transition from crisis to stability. Benjamin Murray shared updates about the school district's early intervention program, which had identified and supported dozens of families before they reached crisis points. Crystal Stevens isn't just thriving in her classes now, he reported. She's starting a peer support group for other children who've experienced housing insecurity. Dr. Rachel Hall presented her findings on the psychological impact of community support networks. What we're seeing isn't just material improvement, she explained. We're seeing profound changes in how people view themselves and their place in the community. Jennifer Hoffman, who had become the coordinator of the expanded Visible Hearts initiative, shared stories of how the movement had spread beyond Cincinnati. We have chapters in 12 cities now, she announced. Each one started with someone choosing to really see another person in need. The technology component had evolved as well. Philip Chen demonstrated the latest version of the Community Bridge app, which now connected thousands of users with immediate assistance and long-term support. What makes this work, he emphasized, is how it combines digital efficiency with human connection. Angela Powell's diner had become more than just a restaurant, it was now a model for community transformation. The Pay It Forward program had evolved into a comprehensive support network, with regular workshops, job fairs, and networking events. We're not just feeding people, Angela explained. We're building a community where everyone has a place at the table. The healthcare sector had seen remarkable changes. Dr. Caitlin Brennan presented data showing how Crawford Medical Center's supportive policies had improved both employee retention and patient outcomes. When we support our staff through their challenges, she noted, they're better able to support our patients through theirs. Victoria Horton and Stephanie Ruiz had partnered to create a workforce development program specifically designed for parents in transition. What we learned from Lauren's story, Victoria shared, is that people don't just need jobs, they need support systems that make working sustainable. The banking industry had undergone its own transformation. Natalie Murphy and Jason Sampson had developed new protocols for working with clients facing temporary hardship. We're not just preventing financial disasters, Jason explained. We're helping people maintain their dignity while rebuilding their lives. Crystal Anderson's research on the Cincinnati model had attracted international attention. What makes this approach unique, she told the audience, is how it transforms both the helpers and the helped. Everyone involved grows through the process of connection. The evening took an emotional turn when Crystal and Daniel Stevens spoke about their journey. I used to be scared all the time, Crystal shared. Now I know that there are always people who care, even when things get hard. Daniel, his asthma now well managed, added, and we get to help other kids feel better too. JD and Usha Vance listened from their seats, still amazed at how a simple choice to stop and connect had sparked such widespread change. When they finally spoke, their message was simple but powerful. The real heroes of this story, JD said, are all of you who chose to see others as worthy of your time and care. Michelle Day shared how the school system's approach to supporting families had been completely reimagined. We're not just teaching children, she explained. We're supporting whole families, whole communities. The movement had attracted the attention of policymakers at every level. Alexandra Howard announced new initiatives based on the Cincinnati model. What started here, she noted, is showing us how to build more humane and effective support systems nationwide. Dr. Jonathan Rose presented findings on how integrated support systems were improving health outcomes across the community. When we address the whole person, their medical needs, their economic stability, their sense of belonging, that's when real healing happens. The evening concluded with Lauren Stevens announcing the launch of a national mentorship program. Everyone here has something to teach and something to learn, she said. That's how we keep this movement growing, by remembering that we're all both givers and receivers of help. As the celebration wound down, Angela Powell looked around her transformed diner with tears in her eyes. A year ago, this was just a place where people came to eat, she reflected. Now it's where they come to change lives, including their own. The final word came from Crystal Stevens, who had written a poem for the occasion. When someone sees you, she read, really sees you, it's like the sun coming out after rain. And then you learn to see others too, and that's how the light spreads. Have you ever been part of a moment that grew into a movement? Share your story in the comments below. Every act of kindness has the potential to transform not just one life, but an entire community.